afternoon. Chief Finley, Sheriff Cunningham, and I are here today to announce the formation of the Montgomery County Cold Case Task Force. This task force has been a long time in coming, but it's finally here. We have heard the cries from hundreds and hundreds of Montgomery citizens who have lost family members, whose cases who have not been solved, say, "Don't forget us." We are here today in unison to let these families know that we have not forgotten. We have assembled the best of the best. We have assembled the best homicide investigators. We've assembled the best victim service officers. We've assembled the best prosecutors that we could find to staff this task force. And the good news is they're already at work. In the 30 or so days that they have been fully together, they have already identified 133 unsolved murder cases in the city and county of Montgomery. They have started looking at each one of these cases to see if there's any forensics that can be done. Keep in mind that a lot of these cases, when they occur, DNA might not have even been around. The technology certainly wasn't around that we have today back when a lot of these cases occurred. So they're going systematically through each one of these cases to see if anything can be sent to the Alabama Department of Forensic Sciences for DNA, ballistics testing, or any other testing that might be available through the Department of Forensic Sciences. The task force is currently actively working 5 cases right now. And in the 30 days that they have been together, I am proud to say that in 3 out of that 5 cases, they have made significant progress. In 2 of the cases, I would expect in the coming weeks, based on what I know now, that we're going to have some arrests. The task force will be working diligently to solve as many cases as they possibly can, but they will not sacrifice quality for quantity. It is so important that we do these cases right, that these cases are investigated right, because they're old cases, they're harder to investigate, and they're harder to prosecute. And we want to make sure that they're done correctly so that when those arrests are made, we can get those convictions in the courtroom. Before I introduce our team members, I want to especially thank a couple of organizations and people. First and foremost is the City of Montgomery, Mayor Todd Strange. I'm picking Todd foremost because it was about 2 years ago that Todd and I sat down at a lunch and I pitched this idea to him. And he did not hesitate. He said, "I'm on board. I want to do everything I can, providing help from the Montgomery Police Department, providing financial help, whatever it takes to get this off the ground." Mayor Strange said it will happen. And he stuck to that promise. I also want to thank the Montgomery County Commission. Chairman Elton is here behind me. Commissioner Sankey, also Commissioner Singleton and Commissioner Harris is also present today. Specifically, I want to thank Commissioner Harris on this side. Commissioner Harris, because he led the charge. I also talked with him, and he is the one who helped advocate this before the Montgomery County Commission. He stuck with me and the chief and the sheriff, shoulder to shoulder, to make sure this got done. But we're very appreciative of the Montgomery County Commission for helping fund this cold case task force, because without the commission's help, without the city of Montgomery's help, this would not have happened. So commissioners, thank you so much for your help. Now the good stuff. I want to introduce to you the cream of the crop. They are the best, as I've already stated. They are the best in their profession. I've had the pleasure of working with each one of these individuals, and they know what they're doing. They're qualified, they're trained, and they have, day in and day out, have done homicide investigations for a lot of their career. And so I want to introduce them to you so that you know who they are. We're going to start first with the coordinator of the task force. That is going to be Damon Lewis, and if you'll come forward and stand as I call your name. Damon Lewis is a violent crime prosecutor in the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office. He's going to help lead this team with legal advice and legal strategy, letting them know what's legal and what's not, and make sure that we do everything by the book. He's going to help with search warrants if they need to be done. Damon has been a deputy district attorney for over 20 years. He started his career in the 5th Circuit and worked his way up to chief deputy district attorney. And we were fortunate enough to hire him a couple of years ago and immediately put him to work in a violent crime unit. He has led numerous task forces in his 21-year career, including in the areas of child advocacy, ICE task force, Project Safe Neighborhood, in conjunction with the federal government. He is currently our designee to the federal government on all of our gun cases. So this is Damon Lewis. Next, I want to introduce to you Anthony Shannon. Anthony Shannon came to us from the Montgomery Police Department. Sorry, Chief. I said we were going to get the best of the best. And, Detective Shannon, before he came to the cold case task force, had worked for the police department since 2011. He was also in the Army National Guard. He's a robbery homicide detective from 2015 to 2019. And I can personally say, because I've had the pleasure of working with him on many cases, that he cares about what he does, and he is a professional in everything he does. And I imagine any case he touches, if it can be solved, it's going to get solved. So I present to you Anthony Shannon. Next, I want to introduce to you Sergeant Greg Schnupp with the Montgomery Police Department. He is the Montgomery Police Department, one of the Montgomery Police Department's designees to the Cold Case Task Force. Again, I have had the pleasure of working with Sergeant Schnupp for many, many years, ever since I've been in the DA's office and he's been with the Montgomery Police Department. He is also been in the United States Army from 1998 to 2005. He was a patrol officer with the Montgomery Police Department from 2006 to 2011, and he's a property robbery homicide detective from 2011 to 2015, and has been a supervisor, 2019, and he's been a supervisor at the Montgomery Police Department since 2015, and currently holds that role of supervisor, and he's going to be helping with those duties with the Cold Case Task Force. So, y'all welcome Detective Schnupp, or Sergeant Schnupp. Next, I want to introduce to you Guy Knockin. We always tell families when they come to our office, when Detective Knockin was actively investigating homicides for the city of Montgomery, they always came to us and said, I don't know about this detective, but he doesn't have the personality. He's not, we don't know if we can work with him. But I say that to tell you that we told every one of those families, if you have a loved one who has been killed in the city of Montgomery, you want that man right there working on that case. Because he is the man when it comes to solving homicides and working on homicide cases. His bedside manner, we'll work on that. But what we really want him for is for his knowledge. And he has the knowledge. He has really self-taught himself to become an expert in cell phone tracing, tracking, putting cell phone tower information together for us, and has been certified as an expert in the circuit courts here in Montgomery in doing that. He's really, really good at being able to track these cell phones, and nowadays that is great information for us to have when we're prosecuting cases. So please welcome Guy Knockin. The Montgomery Sheriff's Office designee is Sergeant Robert Whitmore. Again, he is a seasoned investigator, now supervisor with Sheriff Cunningham's office. And you know anything about Sheriff Cunningham, he only surrounds himself with good quality people. I had the pleasure of actually working with Sheriff Cunningham when he was a detective at the Montgomery Police Department and working homicides. We worked many cases together. So he knows what he's doing. And so he puts the people in place that think like him and can investigate like him. And Sergeant Whitmore is just that man. He is has been an investigator with the Criminal Division of the Montgomery Sheriff's Office from 2011 to 2016, in the Special Operations Unit of the Sheriff's Office in 2016, Patrol Division, again back in criminal investigations, and has also been trained in homicide investigations, gang investigations, and high-risk warrant planning. And he was also named as the 2014 Deputy of the Year. So as you can see, we've got some good quality people that are part of this unit. I do want to introduce to you two other investigators who, while not working full-time, they are actually on loan to the cold case task force to help really give us a oomph and try to get some of these cases solved quickly to give these families some relief and some justice that they deserve. So I do want to introduce, while they're not full-time members of the task force, they will be working and have been working with the task force as we go along. So first is Investigator T.D. James. Investigator James also came to us from the Montgomery Police Department. Sorry about that, Chief. It's a common thing. But Investigator James, he is a great friend of mine, a neighbor of mine. But he and I have worked together many years while he was a detective at the Montgomery Police Department. And because of the quality of work that I saw him do, I wanted to make sure that he was one day an investigator in our office, and we were able to do that. And he has such great knowledge of the streets. He knows how to find information. He knows how to get information. And we're proud to have him helping serve in a temporary role with the cold case task force. So welcome, Investigator James. Last but not least, as far as the investigators, is Andrew Magnus. Again, he stole my Mayor, you need to up the salary.
I'll have it. Got it.
He's going to have a retort in a minute. But Andrew Magnus is also serving in a temporary role with the cold case task force to help give us that push. Investigator Magnus, again, did just about everything with the Montgomery Police Department. And he's been there as long as I've been with the district attorney's office, and his work is beyond question. He does a very good job. His mind is always turning. He's always thinking of new things, thinking of different ways of doing things. And he's not one of those that just sits around and likes to talk all the time. He likes to work. He likes to keep the work going. And I appreciate that about him. Now, in all fairness, he did retire from the Montgomery Police Department. So he was on his way. We were just fortunate to get him when he was available. But please welcome Investigator Magnus. And now I want to introduce to you an extremely important component to this cold case task force. When I was talking to the sheriff and to the chief of police and even the mayor way back when during our discussions, we all agreed that there had to be somebody that would be able to connect with these families and keep them up to date. If it needed to be on a daily basis, whatever. But check in with these families on a periodic basis to give them information of what we were doing in the cold case task force. Such an important part of what we're doing. Because one of the chief complaints, and I see some of our cold case families in the audience, one of the chief complaints is the lack of communication. And unfortunately, that's true. That we have these professional investigators and prosecutors. I know how it is. We're so concentrating on investigating the case or prosecuting the case that a lot of times we forget to communicate with the victims and let them know exactly what's going on every step of the way. We try our best to do that, but sometimes the work gets in the way and we forget it. But now we don't have that excuse because we have one of the best that I've ever seen. We have Victim Service Officer Carolyn Tyus, who is joining our cold case task force as a full-time member. Carolyn and I met due to unfortunate circumstances. Her son was murdered several years ago, and she was upset about the lack of communication. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you. We had a lot of tense conversations, me and her, when I was chief deputy. And I obviously don't blame her. I understand where she was coming from because of what had happened in her life. But we became really good friends. We successfully prosecuted the murder of her son, and anytime I needed an advocate to come and help us and do whatever needed to be done as far as victim advocacy, I would pick up the phone and call Carolyn, who was working at one of our local high schools at the time, and she would, with the permission of her principal, drop everything and come and help me. And that meant a lot to me. So when we were able to hire a victim service officer in our office finally, I immediately called Carolyn, and she agreed to do it. She is a tireless advocate for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. She also works for the Alabama Beverage Control Board and goes around the state, even just this last week, speaking to students about the dangers of drunk driving. And she is going to be a great asset to these families, keeping them informed and making sure they know what we're doing in the cold case task force, what kind of the information that we can share at least, and know when we get to the court process what things are going to be happening and what's going to be going on. And I think that will be a tremendous asset to these families. So please welcome Carolyn Todd. At this time, I want to introduce some very important partners to this process who are going to come and say a few words. And then if you have any questions for us after that, we'll be glad to answer those questions or any one-on-one interviews that you might want to do. I want to introduce the mayor of the great city of Montgomery and my friend Todd Strange.
Thanks, Daryl. Appreciate it. I couldn't help but remember as I was coming over here, Daryl and I don't have lunch that often, maybe a couple of times a year. We've got schedules. It's always tough to get together, but when we do get together for lunch, watch out, because good things happen. I was thinking back, he didn't start helping family initiatives, but he talked us into funding the position at the DA's office and that. We've had a number of meetings about our youth task force and a lot of crime fighting at our juvenile areas. The One Family Justice Center over our lunch, we agreed to fund, help fund that position. We also talked about and initiated some gun buyback programs, not necessarily by government, by the private sector that did that. And now this cold case, over a year and a half ago, we had the pleasure of having a very nice lunch, and over that hour and a half, we talked about this, and I don't need to articulate what it's about. You've already met those individuals. I would give you a word of explanation. The short version is we're leaving our own retirement system that's in the city of Montgomery. If you're in law enforcement, you got a 20 or 25-year plan. If you didn't retire and get the city plan, as we transferred to the RSA, you wouldn't be able to do that. And so timing is really good for some of those that have had some experience, and we've got several that had a lot of experience in doing that opted to retire from the city, get that city retirement check, and now come. And because of the county has been in the RSA system for many years along the way. But I hope what you're seeing and feeling and hearing is the collaboration between all of governments in this particular community. And frankly, that's been the beauty of all of the things. We've announced so many projects in this chamber where it's been a city and a county. And now the district attorney and his leadership, Daryl, we appreciate you because you've got that overall vision. But if you think about it, of the 225 plus thousand in the county, we've got the 200, 205. So a high propensity of these cold cases are us. And by doing this, what we hope those victims' families are hearing is you are not forgotten. Now, we've had cold case investigations for many years, as I chatted with the chief, but that is resourceful. What you see here is hundreds of thousands of dollars that's been dedicated to be able to do this. So what we're doing is with the district attorney's help, with the sheriff's help, with the county commission's help, and certainly now with the city, we are giving this effort to those victims and those victims' families the best that we have to offer. And the technology that we have today, some of the technology that we've invested in, several $100,000 of some new technology, we now can help solve some cases, and we know that DNA is different than it was a number of years ago. And so the message very simply is cold case, new case, we will give you the best effort that we can to solve that, to bring closure, and to bring closure to those families, and frankly, closure to our investigators, because it is pretty frustrating for these investigators to run these cases and end up in a cold case. So Daryl, thank you for your leadership. Thanks to the county commission and certainly to the sheriff, where we've enjoyed such a wonderful relationship. And this is just but one additional effort on behalf of the chief and his staff and Director Ron Sands. And we together want to fight crime in Montgomery, Alabama.
You know, I unfortunately have to go to the county commission quite often because, as many of you know, the state of Alabama does not fund district attorneys properly. And unfortunately, we have to spend a lot of our time begging and pleading to get money to actually fund our office and to prosecute cases from everywhere that we can. But there's not many times that I've been before the county commission that they have told me no. Now I want to tell you, they're tight with that money. And they should be. It's taxpayer money, right, Mr. Chairman? And I don't blame them. But if they see something that they believe in, that I share a passion in, and I've come to them and asking them to fund it, they've never told me no. They've always been there to help with that. Commissioner Sankey and Commissioner Harris and Chairman Dean and Commissioner Singleton are really, really great to work with. They are really great elected officials, and the taxpayers in Montgomery are getting their money's worth out of them because I know that they work extremely hard in their districts and for the county and city of Montgomery. I want the chairman of the county commission, Chairman Dean, to come and say a few words, followed by Commissioner Dan Harris.
Thank you, Daryl. Daryl, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
How many cases are you backed up now?
Well, if you're talking about homicide cases, we have, last time I checked, 116 homicide cases. These are not cold cases. These are 116 active homicide cases pending.
I wanted him to say that because I want you to know that you have a working district attorney, police department, and sheriff department. These guys work tirelessly. It's not that they overlook you all, but they have a big schedule. They working each and every day, sometimes 24/7. And these guys here, they are experts. And the county commission didn't know what to do but to fund what they're talking about. You know, the state of Alabama, like Daryl said, don't give them the funding. But we look at it as being everything that happens in Montgomery is not just the state of Alabama, it's Montgomery, Alabama. And we want to make sure that Montgomery, Alabama do this part. And that's what the county commission believe is. Montgomery doing this part through the DA, through the sheriff. So that's where we put a lot of money in funding. And our partnership with the city, I tell people all the time, all of you in here taxpayers. You don't know whether it's tax for the city or tax for the county. It's all taxpayers' dollars. It's the same dollar. That's where we should continue to collaborate, do the things we should do in Montgomery for the taxpayers, not for power, but for the taxpayers of Montgomery. Victims, families, you in here, we want you to know that we appreciate you, we love your patience, but we are going to work on this. Daryl, you hired one of my best, CC. I call her CC. You talking about a lady that knows about the community, don't run from the community, knows what's going on in the community. You got one. So an advocate be talking to you whenever you need her. She's gonna be there. So I just appreciate it. And I want to take my hat off also to a guy that's been working side by side with me, if you don't mind, Daryl.
No, go ahead.
He was just at the forefront. We got to do this code case thing. We have got to do this. And I imagine that he probably went to sleep dreaming about it. So, but he stayed with the commission. He kept on saying, we got to do this. Don't matter how much it costs. We got people out there suffering. They're tired. We've had people that family members have died waiting on things to be solved. Where's Ms. Bailey? Felicia, raise your hand. Right. Okay, Felicia there. We've had people that's just been waiting. But Commissioner Harris stayed on the forefront with this, brought it to the commission, and we just want to acknowledge him that it's a good project there, and all the commissioners voted unanimous to follow you on that, okay? Maybe for the first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can stand corrected on a little that. This is really a great day in Montgomery County for the families of victims of homicide. You know, there's a saying that behind every good man or every good idea, there's a great woman. And on this effort, that woman has to be Miss Felicia Bell. Daryl and I talked about this some time ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, and it was something that I always thought we needed and thought that we should do. And she wrote me an email talking about her brother who was a victim of homicide and how frustrated she was and trying to get things moving on the case. And my response to her was that, well, we'll work to get a cold case now. She said, she grabbed that and said, I'm not gonna let you forget that. And Lord, she didn't. She'd give me a couple of weeks, and sometimes she'd give me a month. But I could look for that long email asking me about where we are on this particular thing. Now, the first time, Mr. Chairman, this thing came up, I mean, as hard as I tried, as hard as we worked, I brought her down to talk to him and all, we didn't get it through. You know, but we didn't give up. We weren't gonna give up. You know, this was something that's so needed. When you consider, it doesn't matter the circumstances of a particular homicide, but what you have to realize is that every victim of a homicide is somebody's son, daughter, somebody's uncle, father, somebody's mother. And these people are left behind looking for some kind of justice. You can't always give them closure, but the justice, somebody to stand up and take and be accountable for this act. And that's what we're in it to do. And a lot of times you're going to find out the circumstances of that death. That's also an element of closure. So do this unit, and it deserves nothing but the best, Daryl. And you put the best together, and this unit deserves nothing but the best. And I look forward to some great things happening from this group and out of this situation. And thank you, Felicia, for your help. And you know, Daryl, anytime you need something, this guy's always got some good ideas, always got some good things that he wants to do to, number one, keep people out of jail. Number two, put people in jail. Keep people getting out of jail. This guy can do it. And whenever he comes to us, he knows to come to me and talk to me, and I'm going to go down there and convince this commission. But I've worked with a great group of people, Montgomery County Commission, a great group of people, and it's worked sometime, but we always get it done, and we always come together in the end and do the right thing. Thank you. I can talk all day about this.
Dan by trade is an attorney, so him and I get along really well. We understand each other. He is right about Felicia. She is always behind us pushing, and we talk. Goodness, it seems like once a week, don't we? About different things, and unfortunately, she had tragedy occur in her life, and I've made a promise to her we're not going to give up until we get her some justice, and we're trying our best to do that as well. We are so fortunate in Montgomery to have some great law enforcement leaders. My brothers in law enforcement, whether it's Sheriff Cunningham or Chief of Police Ernest Finley, they are two great people who really care about the community, really care about making us safe, and day in and day out, they're doing things in Montgomery and Montgomery County that are really benefiting victims of crime. The chief and I talk a whole lot because unfortunately that's where most of the crime is occurring, is in the city. Derrick is growing and growing, but he's got crime somewhat under control in the county. He's doing a good job. But the chief and I, we see each other, a lot of crime scenes, a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings, and he always has a positive attitude and is always in charge of making things get done. So I do want to publicly acknowledge Chief Finley, who is our partner in this. He didn't want to talk, but I understand. But I want to introduce to you our other partner, which is Sheriff Cunningham, who's going to say a few words on behalf of the Sheriff's Office.
One thing I can say, Daryl, is I'm going to echo everything that's been said. But you all just don't know, and you can sit around the table. Daryl said he got the best of the best. He got the best of the best. And you look at those investigators, and me and Guy Hopkins, we worked together in homicide when I was over at the city. And he's still working homicide. I've been here over 20 years. So that's telling you the type of experience that he has. And then you can sit there, and I never did know baggage, but when I got opportunity to listen to him talk, his eye opened. So when I tell you that he assembled a good group, and I just couldn't just sit back and say, no, I found Robbie. And, Whitmore came and I said, we're gonna need you, because he's a go-getter, and that's what we need. We need somebody that's willing to come out at 2 and be there till 2 the next morning. And that's what we got, and that's those guys that you see on this, task force. And I'm proud to be part of it, so, thank you all, and thank y'all for what you're gonna do. Thank you.
So how's this gonna work? One of the things that I want you to know is that we are meeting often. And when I say we, I'm talking about me and the sheriff and the chief. And we are very heavily involved with the meetings that we're having with the cold case task force. I do want to point out that Loria James, who's my awesome chief deputy who's standing behind me, is directly liaison with the task force, and she meets with them very often, almost once a week, I think, is what she's doing right now. To make things. Yeah, thank you, Mayor, because I did mean to do that. The city of Montgomery has graciously allowed us to use space. Space is a premium. We just didn't have the space in our office or anywhere else in the county complex. So the city of Montgomery did offer for us to have plenty of space up at the CID, the Criminal Investigation Division of the Montgomery Police Department. So they're able to spread out. We've got a war room that we have in there, and they're able to work without having to rub elbows with anybody else, and plenty of space. So thank you for pointing that out, Mayor. And so they're meeting, they're discussing these cases, they're discussing which cases to actively work, which ones we need to send to forensics and that type of thing. I will say that if there are any family members that have questions about their case and whether their case is going to be worked, Carolyn Tias is their direct contact, and they can reach Carolyn through the district attorney's office. And we promise you that if we can get to the case and we can solve it, we definitely will. So that's our press conference. Any questions that we can ask for any one-on-one? Jim?
How old are some of these cases, and could you explain how you narrowed down from, I think, 133 to 5, how you chose those 5 active cases?
Sure. Mayor has to run, he has another engagement. Correct me if I'm wrong, David, come on up here to help me out, but as far as I know right now, we have gone back to 1977 on some of these cases. As far as the ones that we have looked at to actively work, some of that information was provided to us by the Montgomery Police Department of cases that may be promising, as far as might have had some promising leads or some things that just needed to be tweaked or worked on that we could get going on. Some of it came from our office. I know Investigator James had some information about some cases that were cold that we thought we could bring to the table and work. So right now it's just a meeting of these minds, because all of them have been associated with law enforcement here in Montgomery for a long time, so they know a lot of these cases, and a lot of them are fresh on their mind. So we're taking those cases, but they're also systematically going through each of those cases to see what needs to be done, what can be done. Forensics is the number one thing on our mind, because as you know, if you look at media across the country, that is what's solving a lot of these cases. I have to give Commissioner Sankey credit, because he reminded me about the genealogy DNA, and that is the up and coming thing. They just had a case recently solved in Ozark with the young ladies that were murdered in Ozark through the genealogy stuff. So we're going to be hopefully using some of that technology as well. So there's a lot of technology that's available, and we're just going through those cases to see which one of those, or how many of those cases we can use that technology with.
So will you focus on, say, 5 at a time, and after that do you have a priority list?
We don't necessarily have a number that we're focused. That's just the number of cases that they're able to divide up and able to work on currently. We certainly don't want to overload them, because again, we're not concentrating on the quantity, we're worried about the quality. We want to make sure these are good, solid cases. So I wouldn't say we're limiting it to a number of cases, but they know how much they can handle and how much that they can do, and they're going to do as much as they can, I promise you.
If anyone has a tip, how do they get it set up?
Yeah, thank you. We have a board over here, and unfortunately, this is an older board, and the sheriff has one unsolved case. Is that right, Sheriff? There's actually 2 victims, but one unsolved case. So his number is not on there, but everybody knows how to get in touch with Sheriff Cunningham. He's everywhere. But these are the numbers that we have for the district attorney's office. That's how you'll get in touch with Carolyn Tyus, the Montgomery Police Department Criminal Investigation Division, if you need them for any reason. But the cold case task force, I would ask you to go through Carolyn and call that 832-2550 number, and she can get the information to the cold case task force. If you have a question, the media has a question, you can call me, the sheriff, or the chief, and we'll be happy to answer. But also, we're accepting tips through Central Alabama Crime Stop. Everybody knows 215 Stop, and then the Montgomery Police Department Secret Witness hotline, which is 625-4000.
Could you speak to some of the other technology? DNA seems to be a big focus.
DNA is a big focus because, again, that technology has evolved so quickly in the last 20 years. I can remember when I first came to the DA's office, we were using blood type. We weren't even using DNA. That shows you how old I am, I know. But so it has come to fruition in just a short time that I've been in the DA's office in the last 20 years. So if you can think about it, going back into the 70s with cases, there are a lot of those cases where that type of technology wasn't around. So that is a huge focus because DNA solves a lot of cases for us currently. I mean, we have cases right now that are being solved by DNA. The other technology that we're looking at, aside from Commissioner Sankey's suggestion of genealogy, which is DNA, is the ballistics. Ballistics information can be very helpful, and we have a lot more information and a lot more technology regarding ballistics than we did, even 10 years ago, but even more 20, 30 years ago.
Is the evidence still good to be tested in like a 1970s case?
The Montgomery Police Department and the Sheriff's Office, in the case that they have, do a real good job in preserving that evidence. But that is one of the things we're looking at, because I know that, quite honestly, the city of Montgomery has had some issues 20 or so years ago with flooding and things like that. So we are looking to make sure that those, everything is intact, but so far so good. I don't think we've had any evidentiary issues. They do a real good job of making sure that it's stored properly and that it's well protected and locked up and maintained. So I don't think we're gonna have, I can't think of a case anytime that we've had an issue with the Montgomery Police Department or the Sheriff's Office as far as evidence not being maintained properly. Any other questions? Well, we're available for any one-on-one, but thank you for attending this. And again, if you have any questions going forward, please reach out to us and we'll be glad to answer. So thank y'all.